want to say thank you for joining us and for accepting the invitation of the DA2 Festival and watching the film. I would like to, if we can start to make some kind of extension of this documentary, and to make the first question is, what would be your choice, your preferred square in Tel Aviv?
Well, again, good evening. Thank you for taking the time. Thank you for inviting me. It's very nice. It's always good to talk about something you can relate to. I live in Tel Aviv almost 40 years. I was born in a city next to Tel Aviv, but since I got married, we founded ourselves in Tel Aviv. Not that we used to live for many years there, because life of a diplomat is life of a Roma, a gypsy. But the time that we spent in Tel Aviv are good times. And there are several points in the city which I like very much. First of all, the seashore. I mean, I used to live 10 minutes driving time from the coast. And those who went to Tel Aviv, visited Tel Aviv, know that the coasts are very clean, long, very clean. And there are several spots in which you really can enjoy not only the water, but also the surrounding. The other point is the center of the White City, which you've seen, Rothschild Boulevard. This is the heart of the city, which takes from the National Theatre, from the Philharmonic Orchestra House, all the way down to the coast, to the seashore. This is a place in which you can enjoy the Bauhaus, the White City. This is the heart of the White City. So this is also a place which I like very much to visit and to just stroll. The third one is something which you haven't seen, is the Shuk market, the Carmel market, which has it is relatively well known all over because of it is very colorful, and you can buy things very cheap, and this is something which also represents the city of Tel Aviv. Basically these are the 2 or 3 points which I like very much to visit when I'm in Tel Aviv. Next year I'm going to go back to Israel, so I'll have more time on my hand to explore more of the city. I live in the northern part of Tel Aviv, which is more modern, the facility of those who know at the university. This is also a nice part of the city. So
you mentioned the modern part of Tel Aviv. I visited once and I spent 2 days differently. I was more in Jerusalem, but I was amazed by the fact that you saw actually in this film this endurance to make something new and beautiful practically before it was a desert. And you have a city with a lot of trees, combination of nature, and this endurance, persistence probably exists today when you talk about modern part of Tel Aviv. I'll jump on it because there was a dispute in film about what is the new architecture combining to the old one, the new old one in Tel Aviv. How do you think about it?
well, I'm not an architecture.
You're not an expert, I know, but I mean,
I'm definitely not an expert on architecture. But you definitely can see the two sides of the city. The northern part is the more modern one. The southern one is more traditional. The southern part also was established by Jewish immigrants who came from North Africa, from Yemen. One of the best branches you can have is in what we call the Yemenite quarter, down in the southern part of Tel Aviv. But definitely the municipality of Tel Aviv is investing a lot of time and a lot of resources in order to make sure that the city is green, is lovely, and the combination of beton and green sceneries is something you can feel, especially in the northern part. In the heartland of Tel Aviv, we have what we call the lungs of land, the oxygen of the city. It's the Higher Con Park, which you go there and you see hundreds of thousands of people jogging and doing sports. This is the place in which really you can spend a good time alone, reflecting on whatever you want to reflect. So This is actually the two big, I would say, part of the city, which are combined with kind of main streets, which goes from north to the south.
One thing which you could, as an experienced diplomat, comment is, I think it's a great achievement after 110 years, having a city and to put it in a place or position of being UNESCO heritage. So it is something which was thought probably very well, also in a way, in a diplomatic and cultural way of doing it to present it to UNESCO. It's very unusual example that the town, only 100 years old, is today UNESCO heritage.
Well, I think it's not a question of old or young. I think it's a question of uniqueness. And what we see in Tel Aviv is a unique combination of many buildings which are the Bauhaus style, the international style. I spent many years in Germany, and I was fortunate enough to go to the place where the Bauhaus was built in the center of Germany. At that time was East Germany. So I appreciate very much this style. Talks to me very loud when I see the buildings. So the uniqueness of the concentration of so many different buildings, but united with with one international style, made this Tel Aviv, this white city, eligible for becoming under the UNESCO protection. Speaking about protection, if I may, living next to the seashore, being exposed to the water, to the salty wind, this uniqueness of buildings, unique buildings, should be preserved and renovated. And in this Rothschild Boulevard, which I mentioned, you could see, even as we speak, attempts to renovate old house-style buildings and houses. Some of them became boutique hotels, preserving the uniqueness of this style. Very expensive, no doubt. You're fortunate enough even to have to rent a house there, or an apartment. I'm not talking about houses. There are no houses there, but apartments. This area is this Rothschild next to the National Theater is considered to be the hub of young generation of Tel Aviv. Also the hub of high-tech companies, again, very young. So you have a very nice combination of innovation spirit of Israel, the young spirit of us, and tradition, which you can see in the buildings, the style.
If anybody in the audience has a question, please raise your hand and we can ask and pose a question. But you said about the apartments, which are very expensive. There is, when I prepare myself for this interview, there is also, the question was posed about the fact that when the Bauhaus tourism came out and boutique hotels came out, that it could happen something which we watched here at the festival, beautiful film, unfortunately sad film about Venice, what is happening with cruising. And that also in Tel Aviv there are concerns about the fact that to those who are living originally in Tel Aviv, born in Tel Aviv, will not be able to afford themselves to live and buy a flat in Tel Aviv. Well,
it's not, Tel Aviv is not as acute as in Venice. It's not as dramatic in Dubrovnik that the inhabitants, the people who live in Dubrovnik, do not want to see tourists anymore. It's too much. No, in Tel Aviv it's another story. We welcome tourism from all over the world, as many as possible. Tel Aviv is considered to be, among many other things, the mecca for the LGBTQ community, most tolerant city in the world as far as this LGBTQ community is concerned. The question is, of course, the price. Unfortunately, real estate in Israel, don't invest now, it's too late, it's going sky high. Without 100%, 110% mortgage, a young couple cannot start his living, cannot buy.
Is there any worry about demography because of that fact? In Tel Aviv, I would say.
Yeah, there are fluctuations. Sometimes the young generation are leaving Tel Aviv to the cities and towns and villages and kibbutzim around it, especially to the north part of Israel. There used to be a trend of leaving Tel Aviv. Now there is a trend of coming back because it's too expensive. You come back to your parents, you live together with your parents. So it's
something like in Croatia.
Okay. For the time, disease, this standard of living, which is going crazy. So it's. I don't believe that there is an issue of demographic. Another thing which characterized Tel Aviv, like other countries, other cities in Israel, is the fact that there is a big minority of Arab Israelis who live in the southern part, in Jaffa. And the mayor of Tel Aviv, who is a very colorful person, used to be a pilot in the Israeli Air Force, he always make a point to call Tel Aviv with its full name, Tel Aviv Jaffa, because Jaffa is part of Tel Aviv, and there you could see many, most of the population in the neighborhood are Arabs, Israeli Arabs. They speak Hebrew and they have the same rights as we are, but they are there, and from time to time you have also some tension point between the majority of Jewish neighbors and Arab neighbors. It's not easy to live in a mixed city, but all in all, the tolerance which Tel Aviv shows against, as I said, the LGBT community is also toward the big minority of Arabs living there.
One of the last questions I wanted to ask is another dispute is about White City. It is the form as Michal, who we saw actually in the film, and he explained why they came to the White City name, the brand. But researching, I saw also discussion about it. This is not only White City, it's more than that, it's different. We also hear it's not only Bauhaus, it's in international architecture. How do you feel about it?
Well, this is, I think, the name White has by itself kind of an instinct. When you think about white, you think about black, you think about apartheid, white minority, majority, etc., etc. But I don't think this is the case now. I think 110 years ago, when Tel Aviv was established, before they started to build, the place was white sand. And I think this is one of the sources of the name for the White City. Tel Aviv, now not nowadays, but used to be a flat city. The highest floors was 3 or 4 stories up, so you could see the sun, the light. The city is very enlightened in a way. So I think this has to do more with this. This has no, to my humble opinion, no political consequences or any.
Then a painful question from people who live in Zagreb after the earthquake is that the renovation and how you approach in Tel Aviv to renovate. Okay, there is also a dispute how with extra floors, some of them become just, a place for the new architecture. But more or less this respect of how to renovate, how to revive the building, which unfortunately Zagreb, I think you are more probably if you are in the topic of architecture than I am just a paid observer, how in Zagreb, unfortunately, we are not renovating in the same way as it has been done in Tel Aviv.
Well, I'm not here to place judgment on Zagreb. I witnessed the 2 earthquakes myself in the neighborhood up there in the hills. Not very unpleasant. I wish all of us not to experience it again. But Israel, geographically speaking, is in a very unstable area. If you see on the map, if you see the Jordan River, he runs from north to south in a geological place which is very unstable. A meeting point of 2 tectonic places which which not very many years ago, I mean 100 years ago, in the city of Tzfat, in the northern part of Israel, was a devastating earthquake. So Israel is sustained it has a potential to get the big one, as they say in Los Angeles, anytime soon. So we have a local initiative by cities to fortify the foundation of all buildings. If you could see in the movie, there was first building that the buildings were built on pillars, and they are really sustained. They are not. They are very unstable as far as earthquakes are concerned. So there is a tendency to destroy the old houses and to rebuild new houses which are fortified and might sustain earthquake 7, 8. I don't know how strong, but this is part of the renewal of the city. Bearing in mind that in order to preserve this uniqueness of the white city, you have to renovate. I said before, I mentioned the air close to the sea, very salty. You have to take care of what you have in order to preserve what you have, and to make sure that the legacy of the white city will continue. This is, I think, a combination between tenants' initiative and the city, and of course those who are dealing with construction. It's a meeting of a point of making money and making the houses safer to live in, and also preserving, as I said, the legacy of the white city.
At the end of this discussion, I wanted to just ask you your opinion as a citizen of Tel Aviv, the future and the past, because I think the most two emotional moments in the film was the first one when I saw the kiosk, first rebirth, the play put there 100 years ago, preserved even today, the kiosk on one of the squares, which was one of the first building actually in Tel Aviv, which you preserve very well. It's very well nurtured. And the second, which I never thought about it as a man who doesn't know about architecture a lot, and that is the essence of the balcony. The way wide balcony was important to people of Tel Aviv, that was the first moment of freedom for them, that they wanted to have freedom. You don't think here of Croatia, balcony is balcony. You just go out, maybe have a smoke, and that's it. But I wanted to say that how do you see the combination as emotional, preserving the, as you are showing that you are preserving the heritage, and how do you see the future of the city of Tel Aviv?
Well, the kiosk and the balconies, I see now, I can visualize drinking gazoz, spritzer, if you want, in one of the kiosks. I don't think it exists anymore in the center of Tel Aviv. I see it now vividly. Well, you know, there is a tradition all over the world. Go back to your roots and preserve the 60s, the 50s kind of vintage. And this is also happening in Tel Aviv as far as preserving the milestone which characterized Tel Aviv. As far as balconies are concerned, there's a famous song in Israel, balcony versus balcony. Tenants used to sit, to stay, or to stand in the balcony and communicate, to shout from one side of the street to the other. Do you have sugar? Yeah, I'm coming to get sugar. It's a kind of community. You want a big kibbutz, a city kibbutz. So definitely the balconies had a role in the community life of the developing city. Not anymore. You will see modern buildings with huge balconies, but they are isolated. They are not aimed at the other. And people nowadays would like to keep their privacy more. Yes, you will still have to see your neighbors coming and knocking on your door. Do you have sugar or milk or whatever I ran out? But this is fading away. I think the individuality of the people is more to see than more collective, especially in the cities. Not to mention that also the kibbutzim in Israel are moving away, or have been moving away from the very initial idea of community life. Became more individuals, more business oriented. So things time are changing. Also in Tel Aviv.
So where do you see Tel Aviv in 20 years?
Well, the same. But I only hope that the successor of the current mayor will continue, will be as colorful as he is, full of ideas, and continue this to preserve the trend of Tel Aviv as an open city, business-like city, LGBT tolerant, etc., which made Tel Aviv, Yafo, as one of the most interesting cities in the world. They are open for business. I mean, it's beautiful city to visit. Sometimes not that clean. Okay, good. We have to work on this. But the spirit of Tel Aviv is something which is unique. There is a dispute in Israel between, like Zagreb and Split, which is in Israel it is between Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. We say that the most interesting place in Jerusalem is the way to Tel Aviv.
Jerusalem, they say what?
Sorry?
In Jerusalem, the people from Jerusalem?
They don't care.
Okay.
But I always say that when you come to Israel, you get in one ticket 2 cities, in which in one city you can see Tel Aviv, and within 1 hour you can repent Jerusalem. But here in the city, in the movie, I heard something which is very interesting, and I'm going to adopt it. Tel Aviv and Jerusalem are like the minus and the plus of a battery. Yeah. Without them, the battery cannot function, and this is something very, very right. Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, both of them, I will not say what is plus and what is minus, but they are the same, both sides of the same coin. They symbolize Israel of today. Spiritualism, religion, conservatism, beautiful city, Jerusalem, and openness, liberalism, whatever you want, which I mentioned before in Tel Aviv. So both of them are, as I said, 2 sides of one coin, which is called Israel.
So, any question? If not, then I really thank you, Mr. Ambassador, for this wonderful
That's it?
hour. Yeah.
Really, it was easier than going to the dentist. I invite you to those who haven't been to Israel, please, it's only 3 hours flying time. We start to receive tourists as of 1st of November. Those who are vaccinated, 3 shots, it's good. 2 vaccinated, 2 shots, it's good, but still PRC or whatever. But whenever you have time, come and visit. And those of you who are from the faculty, is there someone from the Faculty of Design and Architecture at the university? Are you? I would like very much to come and visit to establish contact, because not only the White City, also in other places, architecture and design is something which we can cooperate. So if you can look me up at the embassy through the Israel in Croatia, Twitter or Instagram or Facebook, send me a message and I will be more than happy, and you will help me too. Right? Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Be safe.